Now, if I were to rank the 3 best phones that you can buy in 2023, I personally would say number 3 is the iPhone 14 Pro Max, number 2, Pixel 7 Pro, and number 1, the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now, in terms of competition, the Galaxy S23 Ultra is by far the most well-polished phone in the market. And for those who are familiar with basketball and NBA legends, I want to give you a clear picture on how good this phone is. Now, most of you guys watching this video knows who LeBron James is. He's a phenomenal basketball player that has minor weaknesses here and there, but overall, he's pretty great at everything he does when it comes to basketball. He can rebound, he's great at assists, he can score at will, and most importantly, he does all of this on a consistent basis. And I don't want to get carried away with basketball analogies, but what I'm basically trying to say is that the Galaxy S23 Ultra is the LeBron James of smartphones. The S23 Ultra has a top tier display and handles powerful video games very smoothly. It has an amazing camera that, just like LeBron's defense, can be weak at times, but is still pretty good. And it's an all around great phone that has been performing very well on a consistent basis. So it's the GOAT. And yeah, I've had some nitpicks mixed with minor issues while using my S23 Ultra, but it's still a really good phone and I wanted to share my experience with it after a week of use. Now, the Galaxy S23 Ultra has a 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display that was very impressive from the start. The combination of brightness, resolution, color, and sharpness makes it stand out as a top tier display. Whenever I was scrolling through my phone, it looked very nice, everything looked good, the responsiveness was very precise, and I had no complaints about the overall feel. But something that I realized is that the display doesn't scratch up easily. I decided to rock mine without a screen protector, and so far, the resistance is holding up very well. And now the S23 Ultra has a 120Hz refresh rate. Scrolling through the OS and many different apps felt as smooth as ever. And since the display has great responsiveness, it made everything feel even more precise, smooth, and sharp. The display can also drop down to 1 Hz whenever it needs to preserve battery life. So if you're someone who wants that extra battery life and doesn't care about 120 or maxing out your screen resolution, the S23 Ultra is definitely for you. Now, the bezels are extremely small. Right here, you can see that they're wrapped nicely around the screen and are much cleaner overall. The hole punch camera is also very small, so it won't bother you whenever you're using your phone. And this helped a lot since I was doing things like gaming and watching a movie. And now when it comes to brightness, the Galaxy S23 Ultra is at 1750 nits, which is really good for whenever you're using your phone outside. No matter how much the sun was shining, I could see the screen perfectly, and you can also put the brightness to maximum if you need it to be brighter. Now, something that I didn't like about the S23 Ultra's display was the facial recognition. There were many times where I'm working out, in bed, or outside, and it wasn't able to read my face. And even if it was working, it would be very slow, and I would try to get it on multiple tries. Now, the fingerprint scanner worked much better. This was very fast, and I opted to turn off the facial recognition and just use my fingerprint instead. And when it comes to the size of the S23 Ultra, I can't tell you whether or not you will love it or hate it, but I do want to list some pros and cons that you could look out for. Now, the pros of having a big screen is that the viewing experience is much better. The battery is bigger, so it'll be able to last longer, and bigger phones tend to have slightly better resolution. Now, the cons of having a big screen is that it makes it much harder to use with one hand. Trying to simply reach the top of the screen requires more work, and you'll need some pretty big pockets if you want to store your phone. But again, I want to let you guys outweigh the pros and cons because everyone's needs are different. Now, the responsiveness still holds up very well and is easily my favorite part about the screen. Its quick and snappiness made the phone feel not only good, but fast. And again, I want to give a side-by-side comparison with how snappy it is. Right here, I have my Pixel 7 Pro, and you can see how fast the animations are compared to it, so it'll give you an idea. And now the resolution and viewing experience of the S23 Ultra's display is an amazing benefit when it comes to consuming media and playing games. Gaming is something that I did a ton when using my S23 Ultra. Something that I noticed was that no matter how long my gaming sessions were, the phone never got hot and it was always able to stay cool. And the main game that I did play was Call of Duty Mobile, and that game takes up a good amount of space and power, so it was good to see that the S23 Ultra was able to handle it with ease. I was also able to see everything very clearly when watching videos, and I wanted to give you guys an idea of what it would look like when watching something and playing the game.
Gives it up to LeBron James, who rips the cords to get us going. Jokic with the offensive board. James.
Now the S Pen on the S23 Ultra is pretty much as good as last year's S22 Ultra. The screen latency between the pen and screen were basically non-existent. The palm rejection was okay. Sometimes it would be able to deflect my palm when writing, and other times it would mess up and back out of the app whenever my palm was on the edge of the screen, so it was pretty much 50-50. But besides that, I didn't really use my S Pen as much as I did with the S22 Ultra. I think that I was too satisfied with the S23 Ultra as a regular phone, and using the S Pen didn't even cross my mind half the time. But I do want to get into drawing, and I like how there's many different apps and features that complement the S Pen. And the only problem that I have with the S Pen is that you can write text messages and it'll play out on screen, but you have to write extremely fast and extremely neat for it to work, so it ends up being pretty hard. But again, the S Pen is a really cool thing to have, and I feel like you can get some really good use out of it, especially when watching content and making art. Now the S23 Ultra has a 5000 mAh battery that not only has outdone the S22 Ultra, but it was also able to last me a whole day on a consistent basis. I'm usually getting over 8 hours of screen time a day, and I only charge my phone when I go to sleep. I don't cut any corners. I always have 5G on, no auto brightness. I maxed out the resolution, and I never used the power saving mode, so I was extremely impressed. Even when I was gaming, it would hurt the battery a little, but not too much. On my heavy Call of Duty gaming sessions, I will be gaming for about 2 hours, and my battery will take a 15% hit, which is a lot better than a lot of other phones that I use for gaming. And if I could give you guys a quick estimate, I would say that my battery is usually on 30% by the end of the day when I wasn't gaming, and about 10 to 15% when I was gaming, which is really good, and I'm still only charging it once a day. Now the last thing that I want to touch on when it came to battery was the charging. I used a 45 watt fast charger, and my phone was able to charge from 0 to 100% in under an hour. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you forgot to charge your phone, you could put your phone on the charger while you're getting ready for work, and it should be on at least 80% by the time you're done, depending on how long it takes for you to get ready. Now looking at software, the S23 Ultra supports Android 13 and is also supported by One UI 5.1, and not only was it incredibly smooth, but there were many different features that make it the ultimate phone as far as customization. I really liked how I could stay connected to my Google apps and calendar. I liked how I could edit my widgets and make them dark or transparent to fit certain themes. I could use custom wallpapers. The always on display was much more customizable than most flagships. Samsung DeX was great for whenever I wanted to watch sports on my TV, and there were so many different customizations that you can do to make this phone truly yours. Now in terms of software sleekness, I felt the sleekness all the way through. Samsung phones are typically very sharp when it comes to optimizing software, and I also loved how I felt like every bit of the 6.8-inch display was used. There was no dead space, and they didn't blow up everything on the screen to make it look bigger. It truly feels like the software is meant for a screen this big. I also decided to test out some games on the S23 Ultra. I played Asphalt 9, which is a game that can really test out the chip, and as you can see, it held up very well, and I didn't get any lags while playing. Now something else that I wanted to touch on was the haptics. They were pretty great whenever I was taking out my S Pen, typing, receiving phone calls, and text messages. And I liked how Samsung made you feel everything you do on this phone. Every movement you do, you feel a slight vibration, and it made it feel even more premium. And the final thing that I want to note was that the S23 Ultra will be getting 4 years worth of software upgrades, so when it comes to longevity, it's definitely got you covered. Now just like the S22 Ultra, the S23 Ultra has some really loud speakers that were very loud whenever I used them. I would usually use them in the house whenever watching videos on social media or YouTube, and I didn't have to turn it all the way up because of how loud they were on the lower tiers of volume. I also tested out how they sounded when playing music, and if I'm being honest, they're loud, and I was very surprised to say that I didn't experience a dip in quality. I also tested out the S23 Ultra as my alarm, and I had no problem waking up to it. I didn't have to set multiple alarms, and I didn't really have to worry too much about receiving important notifications whenever I turned on my ringer. And right here, I'm going to give you guys an idea of how the speakers sound.
Butler Lottie leads the league in minutes played. That's a good-looking shot outside by Kobe. Great defense. Denied a 3-on-1. Nice play by Card. And will it be a payoff at the other end? Yes, it is. Kobe hits the three.
Now the Galaxy S23 Ultra has a 200 megapixel main camera along with a 10 megapixel telephoto and periscope telephoto and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and based on my usage over the past week, I would say that the pictures look amazing. Now starting with zoom modes, the S23 Ultra had a couple of different zoom modes, and of course the quality gets dumbed down a bit once you get closer, but I found all of the zoom modes to be great when compared to other smartphones. I also tested out the 100x zoom on the Ultra, and surprisingly, I was able to get some pretty clean shots, so it's turning out to not be such of a gimmick. Now the shutter speed has gotten better, but there's still room for improvement. I decided to test this out by shooting a moving car, and as you can see right here, the camera was able to capture most cars, but it still couldn't compare to the iPhone or the Pixel. Now next up, I want to show you guys how the camera performed in different environments, and the first environment that I will be starting with is daytime. Now looking at the outside pictures, the selfies were good but couldn't capture my skin tone well. I think that as a person of color, they are lackluster and make me look lighter than I actually am. Also, the sharpness on my face could be too much sometimes when compared to the Google Pixel or the iPhone, where the sharpening isn't overtaking the photo. I also took some photos of random street objects, the sky, different aspects of nature, and I can honestly say that the S23 Ultra held up very well in these environments, and I'm really impressed since the sharpness did a lot better with the main camera. Now taking a look at inside photos, the S23 Ultra was able to capture everything very nice, and I found the pictures to be slightly less aggressive than the outside photos in terms of sharpness. Now when it comes to shooting video, the S23 Ultra is a really good phone that was able to capture quality shots. You have many different modes and frame rates to choose from 720p all the way up until 8K, and as far as frame rates, you have 24, 30, and 60. And I chose to shoot my videos at 4K at 30 frames per second because a lot of you guys, including myself, don't have 8K monitors or even phones where you can truly see the 8K, so 4K was pretty much an easy choice. Also, I shoot 30 frames because it makes it look more realistic. Again, it's based on personal preference. Now the video stabilization was really good. I shoot my videos with my phone, so whenever I'm shooting my subject, I can use everything handheld and the movements will be very smooth, which was very impressive. And for fun, I decided to try out the stabilization to the max, and if I'm being honest, it was pretty good. There are better options out there, but you'll still be very satisfied with this one. So overall, I would say that the S23 Ultra has a good video camera that'll give you some consistently good shots. So if you're someone who wants to shoot content or you just want a solid camera, it's definitely got you covered. So here's the final question. Is the Galaxy S23 Ultra worth buying? Well, I would say that if you want a damn near perfect phone, the S23 Ultra should be your go-to because it's basically everything that you would want in a phone. Great display, great software, great ecosystem, great battery, and it's basically the LeBron James of the smartphone market. And I don't really see other flagships giving it a run for its money. So if you're someone who does prefer the S23 Ultra, it's definitely a phone that you'll be satisfied with. And you also have really good customization, so that's an added benefit. But there it is, my review on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. But that's the end of today's video, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.